Greetings, fellow RotoBallers. It is week 11. It is time. It is the check down. Welcome back. This is our QB tight end start sits for week 11. My name is Joey Christopoulos. Like and subscribe below. Throw your comments down below with my co-host, Dave Rispoli. What's up, Dave?
Hey, Joey. I'm wearing black because I'm in mourning, okay?
Has the NFL season got you down a little bit? The last couple of weeks haven't been weird enough for you?
Yeah, it's gotten a little too weird. Normally, I'm a guy like some weird in my life. I'm always the guy saying, let's get weird, but too weird. Too weird, Joey. I don't like what's going on. It's fun to watch NFL wise, like some underdogs and stuff like that. Fantasy wise, though, I don't like it. But I'm here to tell you, Joey, week 11, I'm feeling it. Okay.
Yeah, let's get feisty.
Yeah, next week I'm going to be wearing a loud and proud Hawaiian shirt. If we nail these picks, you can put that on the board, Joe. So here we go. Who's your first start QB of the week?
Wow, Dave, you heard it here first. The bet is on the line. My first start is a check down darling in desperate times, desperate measures. Let's go with a little bit of a baseline here. Joe Burrow this week in week 11 versus the Raiders. The Raiders, they're allowing 289 passing yards the last 4 games, and that actually includes holding Daniel Jones to only 110 yards during that span. They've allowed 11 passing touchdowns. I just think the Raiders are kind of trending in the wrong direction right now, especially defensively. Burrow coming off the bye week. He just had that multi-TD streak snapped the week before against the Browns. Dave, I just got that feeling. I'm calling it. He's back on the multi-TD map this week. I think he can put up some passing yards. I think he can have a huge game. I think he could be easily top 10, maybe even top 5 this week if the cards fall right. He's my start this week.
I love the call, Joe, because the Raiders have been giving up 8 passing touchdowns over their last 3 games. Here's a team that's giving up way more than that. The Jets, Joey.
You don't say.
Let me go ahead and check my notes. They've given up 100 points of offense in the last 2 games. Therefore, come on down, Tua. You want to talk about a decent baseline? His worst performance, 16 fantasy points so far. Last week, 12 fantasy points, but that was only in a half of football. Like, this guy has a decent rushing floor now, finally. He's taking shots, he's making it happen. We'll get there later in the show. I can't catch the ball for Gesicki, but my guess is he turns it around this week. I like the weapons as far as Waddle is concerned. I see a big game from Gaskins coming. If you're desperate at quarterback, I think Tua is your guy this week.
Yeah, you might be looking at the Jets defense and you're saying, hey, wait a second, Dave and Joey, still 13th fewest to quarterbacks. But to your point, 307 passing yards a game allowed the last 6, 13 touchdowns in that span. And I'm right there with you with Tua. Kind of a weird schedule thing, right? He got hot, and then he played Buffalo. Anyone who plays Buffalo, I think you immediately kind of chalk it up to the fact that they played Buffalo. Then he went out and beat a Baltimore Ravens team. And I think this is a cushy start for him, man. I'm totally into it. I kind of like Tua this week, especially against that Jets defense. My final start of the week, Dave. It's week 11. We're here. It's happening. Now, look, the last time that we did this on the check down, it was Mitch Trubisky. But, hey, you know what? Old habits die hard because the Chicago Bears have a quarterback named Justin Fields on our team, and he's playing the Baltimore Ravens this week. And this just isn't a homer pick, man. 614 all-purpose yards over his last 2 games. Baltimore, if you look it up, all the quarterbacks that they've seen this year, they have not seen a quarterback with Fields' arm or leg capabilities yet this season. The passing against the Ravens, it's kind of been boom or bust. But look, it's either like 120 yards or 400 yards. I'm kind of thinking a little bit more in the middle. I think Justin Fields' legs obviously give him a nice floor, a really great baseline. And Dave, I'm calling it right now. Justin Fields' first multi-touchdown performance is coming in week 11 against the Baltimore Ravens at home. It's a start for me, Dave. How do you feel about this? Are you against me? Are you with me? Because I think you're with me.
I'm with you, pal. I'm so with you. I actually have written in my notes that I was going to make a bold call saying this is going to be his largest passing yardage of any game this year. He's going to have to try and keep up with Lamar. They're coming off a really bad game, laying a huge egg on Thursday night. They have 10 days to prepare for this. I think they're going to be coming guns blazing. No way Lamar puts up a dud 2 weeks in a row. He usually follows up duds with huge boom weeks. And Justin Fields is becoming the guy we thought he was in the offseason, especially for fantasy. As Bears fans, yes, but also for fantasy. This is a guy who has a huge arm, Darnell Mooney, a deep target to throw it to, or Marquise Goodwin, or whoever we're hobbling.
Maybe someone else on the show coming up a little bit later. Yeah.
Duct taping together to make it happen. But here's what I love the most: 26 rushing attempts in his last 3 games. Those are RB2 numbers, Joe. Sign me up for Fields. Let's go to a couple of quarterbacks that, one of them, very big name, who are telling you to sit. Now, you may not have a better option, Joe, but these are guys where I get in that feeling in my stomach like I just had Taco Bell for breakfast. You know what I'm saying?
They call it agita, or they call it Russell Wilson's return, I believe is what we're going with here, versus the Arizona Cardinals. Look, everyone who stashed him on the IR and, was ready to put him right back in the lineup.
Traded for him.
I don't know, with someone else that's maybe handsome and Greek. Who knows? But look, you were so excited to get him back in the lineups, and what a disappointing performance it was against the Green Bay Packers. Now they're playing an Arizona Cardinals defense that's allowing the 3rd fewest to quarterbacks this season. They've allowed 16 or fewer fantasy points to 7 different quarterbacks. I'm just not buying the Russell resurgence just yet. I think he can maybe disappoint. I'm not saying the Seahawks are going to lose the game, but in the land of fantasy, points is king, and I don't know if Russell Wilson gets you there. I think he's a bit of a sit, or at least a disappointment in Week 11.
Yeah, this one's an eye test, Joe. A gut call and an eye test.
Yeah.
Didn't look right. Now, a lot of people were saying, and you've ragged on me before, but I follow a lot of doctors on Twitter. So the Twitter doctors are saying this, okay? The cold weather, the steel in the finger, it's not good. Now, granted, this game is in Arizona. Maybe he has a little bit of a bounce back, but last 3 games he played, yet to surpass 161 passing yards. They're just not getting it done. I could see them, especially if Kyler Murray doesn't play, especially if DeAndre Hopkins doesn't play, feeding, Chris Carson, Alex Collins, Homer, 7 other running backs the ball, putting it in their belly, keeping it out of Russ's hands, a guy who looks like he needs a little more time to get it going.
Well, that's a great part. Final thing on the eye test, just real quick, is it does look like that he's out there limited. Like, he's like, look, I can do certain things and move the chains. I'm Russell Wilson. I can play winning football. I don't think he's ready to grip it and rip it yet. I don't think he's ready for those Tyler Lockett 35-yard rips or the DK Metcalf down the sideline. That doesn't spell fantasy success right now. At least for this week, he might get it soon. I just don't think it's coming right now.
Yeah, and I don't like what I saw out of DK Metcalf at the last part of the game getting ejected, and then he told reporters, I'm tired of losing. Something's amiss. I'm getting bad juju coming out of Seattle.
One season, DK.
Yeah, geez, must be nice. Cut to Allen Robinson, like, hey, buddy, get in line.
Yes. Speaking of losing, let's talk about our next quarterback who's going to be a sit this week, Dave. Who do you got?
Carson Wentz versus Buffalo. This is a guy who just burnt us last week. Not as bad as Matty Ice did, of course, but he burnt us still. And this wasn't his fault, okay? They played a bad team last week, and he has the best running back in football right now. His name is Jonathan Taylor. He's an absolute freak of nature. I have him on one of my fantasy teams. I'm pretty sure I'm going to win it this year because of Jonathan Taylor. But here's what that means. They haven't really needed to throw it. Now, you look at the matchup. This is scary. Buffalo, Joey. Buffalo giving up least fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks, and they've allowed only 1 passing touchdown in their last 3 games. I don't think Carson Wentz is the one to really break that streak. I don't see him.
I'll be the one. I'm Carson Wentz.
If you're totally desperate, I don't think he's absolutely unstartable. I just see a game with 250 passing yards or less, 1 touchdown at the most. I don't see him being able to go off in this situation. And you look at the other side of the ball and you're saying, yeah, Buffalo seems to be getting it going. Finally, they're putting it up, but we know Buffalo. We know this Buffalo, right? It's 1 week, 45 points. The next week, 6 points, and it'll be the Zach Moss show or something. So this feels like a trap game. So I'm nervous. I'm off of Wentz this week.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. For Colts fans, it's hold the Thomas. Give me the Jonathan Taylor. I'll tell you that right now, because he's definitely could be a league winner this year for sure. And yeah, Carson Wentz, Buffalo Bills allowing an average of 12.4 fantasy points to quarterbacks all season. Ooh. On top of that, 15 interceptions this year. Put that together with Carson Wentz, and you might have yourselves a little bit of a bleep show. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
He's making plays out there.
He almost threw 2 picks last week against Jacksonville.
Yeah, and one of the main baselines of this crazy up and down roller coaster NFL season, even over the last couple of weeks, is that Buffalo's D travels no matter where it goes, and it's just been a tough start for anyone that goes up against them. So we just don't recommend it, or just try and find a different option. Dave, it's time to move on to our tight ends. Give me some starts, baby. Who are you firing up in Week 11?
Yeah, this first name is a guy who we just saw play last night, played really well. He finally looks healthy. I think it's time to take this guy back to where he belongs, into the must-start territory. It's George Kittle. He won't end up on this show anymore because he just needs to be in your lineup at all times if you have him. This is a guy who led the team in targets last night and looked great doing it, Joe. I mean, he's back. He looks elite. Garoppolo's looking into him early and often in a game that Garoppolo only threw the ball 19 times. 7 of them was to George Kittle, so that should tell you everything you need to know. So if you have anything else on Kittle, we can just go ahead and move on to our first start, because this is a guy who we told you to start last week. Now, Joe, we've had some bad calls. Okay. Here's the thing.
I'm not mad about this one.
No, here's the thing. Matt Ryan was a bad call. Okay. That's just how it shook out, because sometimes, you look at the game and you go, oh, maybe this was a trap game. Maybe we could have seen this coming.
Dave, if Matt Ryan was a bad call, if I had a nickel for every time that I was uttered in my life, I'd be a rich man.
Yeah, we sometimes we got to take some shots on this show. We can't just tell you to start Patrick Mahomes every week. No one's going to watch that, okay? Last week, we told you to start Mike Gesicki, okay? Mike Gesicki scored 0 fantasy points, but I stand by this. That was not a bad call, because as fantasy analysts, what we're supposed to do is look at the data and go, who's going to get targeted and who has the best percentage to get you fantasy points. We can't catch the ball for them, people. Okay. I'm not Mike Gesicki. I could have caught one of those 7 targets. And if you don't believe me, it was a historic egg he laid, Joey. In fact, it was the first tight end since 1999.
Batman Returns.
Some people watching may not have even been born yet, where a player saw 7 targets in a game without a single catch. No way that continues. He's a great player. We love Tua this week. We love the Dolphins. Bounce back for Mike Gesicki. What do you say, Joe?
I say to anyone that's mad at us for telling them to start Mike Gesicki, I say, you know what? You're a part of history. We're all a part of this history now. Together, we'll all be there to tell the tale.
Welcome.
The
You're
time.
Welcome. How many people get to say they're a part of history?
Our dumb faces, but you know what? Now you're in history, all right? We go back to 1992 on this one. Yeah, Jets allowing 8th most to tight ends this year. Gesicki still averaging 7 targets a game, especially over his last 6 games as well. I'm calling a bounce back. And Dave, I got a hot take for you. Mike Gesicki, 1 reception, at least in this game.
I'm kind of hoping he doesn't to start a new record. You know what I mean? 2 game first tight end, two games in a row with 0. Who do you like? We're pairing our quarterbacks with tight ends. Might as well keep the tradition going. Who do you like at tight end this week still?
Well, this is a streamer, and he's a guy that's had his arrow pointing up for a couple of weeks now, and I think eventually this is actually a pretty decent matchup for him to not only maybe pick up, but maybe also play, with the Broncos and Rams on bye. Maybe you've got a Noah Fant, maybe you got a Tyler Higbee, got to find something on the quick and easy. Going Cole Kmet. Welcome to the checkdown, Cole, versus the Baltimore Ravens. Ravens allow the second most touchdowns, the second most fantasy points to tight ends. They're allowing, and Kmet's got 6.25 targets over his last 4 games. He had a 6-87 last week. The Ravens have allowed 6 touchdowns to tight ends this season. So I'm just going to go ahead and say I think Cole Kmet gets in the end zone this week. I think he gets a touchdown, and 5 different tight ends have put up at least 10 fantasy points against the Baltimore Ravens this season. It's coming together with Kmet and Fields. They have a real good on-field chemistry. You can tell he's starting to look his way, especially you can see it in the target volume share. I think Cole Kmet over 10 fantasy points this week, by hook or by crook, whether the end zone or whether by receptions. I'm into it. What say you?
Love the call, Joe. Move over, Jesse James. It's Cole Kmet's time to shine in Chicago. Now it's time to give you our tight end sits. Now, these are 2 guys who are big names, and you've probably been using them for the last 5-6 weeks, and they've been great. Top 10, top 12 tight ends we're talking about. But read the tea leaves here. They're trending the very wrong direction. We're saying to sit them this week. And if you have them on your team, it might be time to start looking for other options. First one is Dalton Schultz versus
Yeah.
Kansas City. I mean, this guy was like a top 5 tight end for that little span of time. I think now we're seeing that was a byproduct of Michael Gallup being gone. He played a season low 66% of the snaps with Michael Gallup back in the lineup and has yet to break double-digit fantasy points since week 6. Arrows pointing down. This is just, you're hoping for an absolute massive shootout, against Kansas City. But then you look at last week, they put up tons of points last week and he still didn't get it done. So he's a guy I'm just not putting my starting lineup anymore.
Again, Dave, another great eye test on your part, because if you look at the stats, out of the last 3 games, he had a solid game, but the other 2, I think he had 11 receiving yards and 14 receiving yards. I mean, those are fantasy week killers right there. And on top of it, man, if you watch these Cowboys games, because I got a lot of Cowboys on my fantasy team this year, so many wide receivers. Dak Prescott has so many options that goes just beyond CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper. I mean, they're like 4, 5, 6 deep. I get it, Dalton Schultz. Could be a guy that has a nice rapport with Dak Prescott. I'm just not buying him getting in the end zone. I'm not buying the targets that he was getting earlier in the season just because other guys are coming up and making plays. And with Michael Gallup coming back, I just think that is something that doesn't really work. I just don't think it works for fantasy success right now. He might be petering out. You were trusting him for too long. You might need to start looking for different options. My final sit of the week is Zach Ertz for Seattle. Zach Ertz, here's the thing, is that, I don't think he's really been. First of all, Seattle hasn't allowed a touchdown to a tight end since week 4. And Zach Ertz, he came on, scored that touchdown early. But again, with Kyler Murray's situation up in the air, the whole Arizona Cardinals situation has gotten pretty tough, right? I mean, even with, DeAndre Hopkins is banged up right now. It's really hard to see which kind of team is going to show up on a week-to-week basis. They played well last week. This week, just a couple days ago, because we're taping this on a Tuesday, didn't play so great. It's just too up in the air for me right now. I would rather go with a Cole Kmet, honestly, than a Zach Ertz right now. Until Kyler comes back, they're playing this week and then they go on bye. So you might have to wait for a couple weeks, right? Maybe even Zach Ertz is a guy that you can drop, see if he comes back around you in a couple weeks. I just think there's better options out there right now. He's a sit for me too.
Yeah, I think he's in the exact same situation Dalton Schultz is, Joey. Look at the Arizona offense. You have DeAndre Hopkins, you have Rondell Moore, you have Christian Kirk, you have AJ Green when they're all healthy. He could be 4th, 5th, 6th in targets if Chase Edmonds comes back. I mean, there's just not enough to go around to make him fantasy relevant. He has yet to top 46 yards in his last 3 games. To me, he's droppable. It's time to look for the Dan Arnolds, the Cole Kmets of the world, who are at least like the 1 or 2 passing option on their offense.
That'll do it. Week 11, the check down. Quarterback starts and sits. Tight end start and sits. Joey Christopoulos at Joey Sports Guy. David Rispoli at Tighty Guy. Thank you so much for watching this video. We'll see you next week.
Go win that league.